So Sarah showed you the middle picture in her presentation, and one of the people that I'm working with as in my steering group was terribly upset that we kept showing this picture, because that's a church in Herefordshire, which a faith in maintenance course was run, and the picture on the right is what they did as a result of the faith in maintenance course, so it's now sorted out. So, now how am I going to get this to go on to the next one, or do I scroll it down? I can't, so should I press the button down there on the mouse? The left button on the mouse, isn't it? Right, okay. So Stella briefly said where we were working. So for those of you who don't know where that is on the map, that's the coloured blocks on the map. So I'm the blue area. So what have I been doing? Very much like Stella. I've been in the early days out and about meeting people. I think one of the reasons that I'm doing pretty well in Herefordshire and Worcestershire is that we're really fortunate to have two places of worship support officers in the two dioceses, so Hereford Diocese and Worcester Diocese, and one of them, Andrew Mottram, is one of the speakers later on today. So I met Andrew and Tim, set up the steering group, and we sat around and looked at where we thought we'd probably get the message across where there was a need, where it was likely to be receptive, and we actually tried to target areas, particularly in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and I'll show you a map of that shortly. Had various phone calls and meetings. Archdeacons seemed to be very much the key to getting things done, so when we were ready to get to a launch stage, went to see both of the archdeacons in the areas, and the magic thing was getting a letter from the archdeacons to the PCCs, because if the archdeacon says you've got to do something, you've got to do it. So that worked really well. So a couple of launches in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and then what I was offering initially was a package of follow-on training. So that was a faith in maintenance course, a day out on church architecture, and a baseline training day. And that's kind of how I've done it to start off with. And I was aiming to get the first co-ops going in the summer. So where are we talking about? Well, this is one of my other jobs, is actually to do with a project to do with geology and quarries. So that's why you've got a geological map of Herefordshire and Worcestershire, because my colleague from that job did it for me. So these are the areas where we thought we'd get some action. In actual fact, a couple of places that are not on that map have come forward because of the publicity, which is really great. So, yeah, I'll talk about those in a minute. Stella, I think, Sarah showed you the maintenance co-op sketch. I think I'll move that. Oh, that's better. I don't have to lean forward now. Great. So, basically a team working together in some sort of cooperative manner, and that's very much kind of developing as people are coming forward and wanting to work together in different ways. That is working slightly differently everywhere. Supported by the regional officer, we've been in post now for a year, so one of the key selling points now in my area is that I'm only here for another 2 years, and that is actually generating some quite significant interest at the moment, which is good. And then basically, as a result of joining in, confidence will be gained and people will be able to do basic things on their own and work together to perhaps get a contractor in jointly to hire a cherry picker, for example, and share the cost of that. So that's how we're going about doing things. Now at this point, Ben's going to pop up and tell us what it's been like from his point of view, and then we've got a bit more of me, and then a bit of John, and then a bit more of me again. So over to Ben now.
Left button.
Left button on the mouse.
Right, so I just wanted to get up here and tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm here. So by trade I'm a carpenter, and I work on historical buildings in Worcestershire and around the West Midlands. And I love to learn about the different buildings and the history of them, and gain new skills and pass them on to others. So that's why I got involved with this project, so I could go on training courses, learn more things, and also help people who care for the places of worship and help give them advice and help guide them and join in with getting my hands dirty and cleaning out gutters. So, what have we been up to? We've been doing a lot of educating, encouraging and connecting. So in Worcestershire and Herefordshire, to better educate, in June we had our baseline survey training day, which was led by James Innerdale. We met at Great Whitley Scout and Guide headquarters, which was the former Great Whitley Parish Church, and it was built by the Victorians to move worshipping closer to the village. And James taught us how to carry out the baseline survey and how to use the document that has been created, which is a fantastic document, and it guides you through the survey step by step. And this was followed by a little tour of the Great Whitley Baroque Church, which we were absolutely blown away by all the fine detailing in there. It's a stunning church. In July, we attended South Sarah Croft's Faith and Maintenance course at St John's Church in Barnyard. Sarah gave us all. There we go. Sarah gave us all a copy of the Faith and Maintenance Handbook, which you've all got a copy of today, which is a brilliant book. And then we had a tour of the church with its Norman carving by the Herefordshire School of Stonemasons. And I popped back the weekend after to go and get a sketch of the south doorway, which was really nice doorway that was. In August we went on a trip led by Tim Bridges, who was from the Hereford Diocese, and he guided us around 4 churches. We started at an early medieval church and finished at a Victorian church, which was a great way to see how the architectural styles have changed, but also the way in which the buildings have been used has changed over different periods. So what have we been doing to encourage? So after our baseline survey training day at the Great Whitley Scout and Guide headquarters, their group acknowledged that yes, they are lucky to have such a beautiful building, but also that maintenance does need to be done. They have worked out a maintenance plan and held a working party on a Saturday morning to clear away brambles and clean the gutters. I soon volunteered when I heard the bacon sandwiches on offer. In September, we spent a Saturday at Crawley Church, part of Festival's churches. So we gathered all the visitors to do a survey and then armed them with labels and trowels to clean the gullies. It was really encouraging to see at the end of the day when we all stood back and saw what difference had been made. And everyone was really positive about the difference that had been made. So connecting, what have we been up to connecting? Besides the fundamentals of different places of worship connecting, there have been lots of other positive connections. So the Traditional Building Skills Bursary, who run an apprenticeship training scheme, they've been sending their apprentice stonemason from Worcester Cathedral. She's been coming along to the events to help out and learn about the history of the buildings and how to do preventative maintenance. We've also been to a couple of Kate Andrews' other projects. We had a trip to Hadley Quarry, which is a quarry just outside of Worcester. And the quarry used to supply stone to Worcester Cathedral and the Worcester City walls for repairs. So we learned how the stones were quarried by hand and pickaxe, and we did demonstrations. We also went to a church in Herefordshire and we built a dry stone wall. We had a professional dry stone waller there who taught us all different techniques, such as keying, trace laying. We didn't get a lot done in a day, but he stayed the next day to finish it off. So as a co-operative, a lot has been achieved already in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and I have faith that a lot more is going to be. But throughout all of this education, encouraging, connecting and hard work as well, there's always time for Team K. Thank you.
So, the sort of thing that I'm saying when we're going out to people, because we're still recruiting people to join in and new co-op members to join, is what do you need to do? So I've just wanted to run through some pictures of actually what we have been doing. And these are the sorts of things that I'm telling people when I go to do my launch presentation is, this is what you should be doing to get a co-op underway. So get in touch with the regional officer and so on. So the next few slides are slides of those things happening. So get in touch with the regional project officer. Well, I've been to speak to PCCs. Some churches have deanery CCs, that's what a DCC is, so I've been to see them as well. To the management committees, archdeacons I've already mentioned, lay people and clergy, and this is me talking to Great Whitley Scout and Guide Association at the point where they decided that actually, yes, they've owned this building since 1971. They have not done any maintenance on it whatsoever since then, and perhaps they need to do something about it. So that's their newly formed building committee at its very first meeting, going, oh my goodness, what do we do? And I was able to actually go along and offer them some practical help. But Ben missed out on the free Muddy Boots burgers last weekend. He was too busy doing a job, mending a hole in somebody's wall. They were rather good, but I'll show you some pictures of that later. Not the burgers, the work that they're doing. Get your management committee involved and sign up. These are the people who so far are coming to us and saying, yes, we want to do it. So the Team Valley, that covers Great Whitley, Shrawley, Little Whitley. So we've got 3 or 4 churches saying, yes, we want to get involved. The redundant church is the Scout and Guide headquarters. Not entirely sure whether they fall into the coverage of this project, but they're in a church. Sarah's nodding here. They're in a church, and they've got lots of keen young volunteers. And we were hoping there might be an opportunity for some Scout badges there as well in terms of badge and maintenance. Haven't quite got there yet. And this is where the most working parties have occurred so far. So Ben showed you the pictures of working underway at Scout Hut. I've got a few more of those. And at Shrawley Parish Church. Droitwich, they were one of the areas that was not on the kind of hit list of places to go for. I think largely because Andrew felt that it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle there. Very much a need, but very little interest in the past. But much to his surprise, they've come forward. 4 churches having baseline surveys done between now and Christmas, and a few more actually in the area that we might hope to persuade along. Some of them have signed their MOUs. One of them signed up. I'm waiting for the others yet. So that's the Memorandum of Understanding. So what I'm saying to people is, yeah, join, but actually please sign this piece of paper for me, and then you can be officially part of it. In Kidderminster, we've got one church, St George's, and Derek's here from St George's today. They've signed up, and a bit interest from at least one other church. Haven't quite nailed them down yet, but hope so. And Derek's managed to get his PCC to agree to having a cherry picker in once a year. And when I show you a picture of that church, you'll see why there's the need for that. That the walls are at least 40 foot high. It's a very, very tall church. In the Golden Valley, that's in Herefordshire. So the picture Stella showed you of baseline training day was actually Ewes Harold, and that was also the picture on the very first slide of Ewes Harold Parish Church. That was the place we did our very first official baseline day, and hopefully other churches in that area. And we are going to be there next Friday, which is National Gutters Day, cleaning their gutters out. And at that point, I will know the answer to how many volunteers does it take to clean a gutter out. I don't know yet. So we'll see what happens on Friday. Breedenbury, that's in the Bromyard area. We went to see them about 2 weeks ago on Saturday. In fact, that's the best maintained church I've been to so far, so I think we probably don't need to join in, but they were keen. There are other less well maintained churches in that area, so hoping to get some interest there. Pershore area, That's an area that's got a particular geological problem in that it's on the Blue Lias, which is mudstone. It was never intended to be used as a building stone without being covered in a render, but those Victorian improvers decided that the render was not the right thing. So basically when it rains, the mud dissolves and the church falls down. So that's why we settled on that area. So hopefully something will be happening there soon. And then in fact, as a result of Sarah doing a film course up in the north part of Hereford Diocese, which is actually in Shropshire, one of the people who came along to that was from Herefordshire, Ludwardine, and he phoned me up and said, come and see me, so I'm going to see him shortly. So interest from areas we hadn't anticipated, as well as the areas that we wanted to get going. So who's been coming to the training? Well, this is specifically for Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and so far 101 different individual people have been to my stuff. The graph shows you the y-axis is the number of people turning up to things, the x-axis is the number of courses they've been to. So the first column is blank because some people have booked to come on things and haven't turned up, so that's 0, but I don't know, that's not very many people. The next column, the big blue one, represents about 63 people who've just been to one thing so far. The next couple of things has 2 things, 3 things, 4 things, and these ones here, yellow and blue, that's John and Ben. They're my star volunteers. They've been to 12 and 13 things each, so thank you, John and Ben. But I think the group in the middle, the sort of purple, pale yellow, green, that's the beginnings of actually people from co-ops who are starting to come to several things, which is really great. So the concept is actually kind of getting embedded and being rolled out. So I've actually personally delivered 68.5 hours of training in a year, and 245 people have altogether have been to that, because lots of things people have done some more. And so altogether, 1,000 hours of training to people has been delivered. And then I've also been flagging up training that other people are doing, so there's 12 other training courses run by other people that are entirely relevant to the project. And Stella's already largely covered this. This is what people are saying they want in terms of feedback and further training, preventative maintenance, caring for churchyards, and what I have personally been doing about it in Herefordshire and Worcestershire. But I shall certainly be booking in for Stella's dealing with damp course, because I wasn't quite sure what to do about that, so thanks Stella. I'll be along in January to that. So as she said, we're dealing with some of those things today with speakers today. And then I was speaking to Andrea earlier on saying we need to do something about churchyards in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, so we'll certainly be following up with that. Baseline assessments, well, that's what I'm saying to people. That's the thing you need to do first. You can't do stuff unless you know what condition your building is in and what the priorities are. There's no point sort of rushing around going, we need to fix the boiler, or there's a hole in the window when actually your dam pipe is broken and a wall's saturated. At one of these churches I went along to give a talk, and I showed the slide of a damp patch on the wall at Clapham, which we'd seen on our team training day, and then I looked up behind the screen of the projector and there was an identical damp patch being caused by an identical problem on the wall behind me. And in that case it was, oh, it's been sorted, but actually as a result of doing the baseline day with people from the congregation and other helpers, they realised that actually no, it hadn't been sorted. Their contractor has been coming in and saying it's been sorted, but it's clearly not sorted. So that's actually some ownership of that problem was then taken on board by the community at the church, and things have really moved forward. So that's Derek, who's here today, and Rick, who is a member of the Scout and Guide Co-op, doing some work together at St George's Kidderminster, top right. That's a member of the clergy lying on the floor using binoculars to inspect the inside of the roof. That particular roof is sort of about 60 foot high up to the top of the nave. It's not very easy to see up there, but I would highly recommend using binoculars for looking at things inside. It's really good. And so lots more baselines underway, and I've got 2 more booked in before Christmas. So I'm pretty busy doing that at the moment. And now that's over to John. So, and you've got a bit more of me when John's finished as well. So. Just click the left-hand button and I will wave at you.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I'm John. I volunteered because I'm a member of SPAB and got to know of it. This was going on, but it wasn't going on in my county because I live in Warwick. But I did ask the authorities whether it was possible to nick across the county border, and the answer was yes, which is why I'm here today. We're into co-op. Oh, sorry. Oh, microphone. Yes. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. I tend to project adequately well, I'm told. The word I want to pick up is cooperations. I'm now going to cooperate. The word Kate, Big Boss, is cooperation. I want to cooperate. Place of worship. Now, when I was a Boy Scout, we used to worship Baden Powell, so I think you've got your answer, haven't you? To the Scout type problem. Is it a church or isn't it a church? Sorry, I'm ad-libbing there. I came to it from SPAB, volunteered, and here I am. I have an interest in old buildings. And my interest particularly is in the timber. And I want to talk about cooperation. Sarah and Stella and Kate have all talked about cooperation between church group and church group, but there are other areas of cooperation as well, most particularly between the local church group and the visitor team, the regional coordinator, the people from the diocese, and people like Ben and myself. In fact, I've cooperated with Ben. In July, I spent 2 days on my knees helping to repair the oak threshing floor of a barn in Rickmansworth. And who was my boss for those 2 days? This young man down here. And it was a joy to work with him. We went to this site, and you may wonder whether that's a church. If you do look top right, you will see some stone going upwards, and it gives you a bit of a hint. But that's my introductory slide. We now looked at the church proper, and do you notice some green in the middle of the picture? Green is bad news in our field, particularly in the case of moss. So we, 3 of us, I was asked to lead a couple of others, they'll be mentioned, and we had a look at the green. So we actually looked rather more closely at that downpipe. And what we found is that. And you can see the effect of the water on the modern membrane below. And we didn't quite like the fact that it didn't have a bottom to it. And we thought we might have got a bit of a problem there until we looked upwards. And in fact, virtually nothing went down the downpipe, with or without its bottom spout, but it came over the edge there. So we had another look back at the green area, and round the corner it was even greener still. And this, by the way, is the hazardous way to the roof. We're already on an elevated flat roof of an extension, which you really need to reach with ladders, but it can be reached by people without ladders who have an interest in removing lead off the roof, so we have to take off the edges of the stones of the corner that isn't square in order to prevent the use doing that. But we have a problem there, don't we? And so we investigated a little further. I now have to we separated the slides this time, Kate. Righto. Do you mind if I go forward one? No? Sorry. Oh, back. Which is back? Sorry. No, right. Okay, right there, there's a slide. I was expecting it was missing. No, let's go back to one more. Righto, there is a slide missing, which is of another downpipe, which is a beautiful cast iron square section thing with a spout on the bottom, and the water would run down it beautifully. But it's not that good. Okay, no problem. My team comprised 3 people, and they're the other 2 members. Jeff, whose picture you can see at the bottom, is even more mature than I am. He's not here today. He's fairly deaf, but he's the guy that looks after the bells and bell chamber. And he led 2 of us up there. And the occupant of the jeans is in the room, and that's Alice, stonemason, second stonemason, lady stonemason I've met today. And Alice, we went up in the bell chamber, 3 of us, and we needed to look on the roof to see the condition of the top of the tower. It's one of the checklists. So I looked at Jeff and thought, bell chamber yes, but roof possibly not. I thought about myself and heard my wife say, pretty certainly not. Thank goodness a young lady came forward and said, oh, I'll climb over the bell frame, go up through the hatch on the roof. And Alice took my camera, removed the hatch, went on the roof, took a series of photographs and came back down again. And she got to about where she is in the picture and said, I'm having difficulty getting the hatch back on. Now at that stage, Jeff was on my side of the bell frame. So he said, oh, wait a minute, there's a spur of timber over here. I'll bring this through and help you lift it down. So, aged 82, Jeff got through the gap of about that much under the bell, up the other side, and helped Alice to reposition the hatch on the roof and get down. So we're into cooperation. I thought this was well worth remarking. I had the camera back by this stage by a photograph, and Jeff was all right, but Alice was stuck up there, and she wasn't one. We couldn't quite get her in the picture, so you've got an upside down Alice. Bless you, dear. And as we came down, I have to jump. This was a photograph Alice took at the top. What a beautiful photograph. Have you noticed how the gentleman is smack centre line on that spout? But come down an inch or 2 from the edge of the spout and have a look at that circle in the middle. It is smack over a thumping great hopper below it. So the water is meant to go out through the round hole and down through the hopper. Only when it rains cats and dogs, or whatever the phrase is the surplus meant to go out over the spout. But I think if you look carefully, as one of our team did, you question whether that hole is a hole. Our conclusion was that the water off the roof of the tower went thundering out through that spout, and guess what's below it? A buttress with green moss all over it. Now, I would be interested to know whether that problem has been solved by today. This was about a fortnight ago, but we think that in heavy rain, it was drizzling the day we were there, not heavy rain, so we weren't able to experiment. But the green on that buttress was caused by water going out of that magnificent spout instead of through the hole in the middle. As we came out, I took a photograph of that, which is the exit door from the aperture into the tower, and that's the roof beyond. By the way, the drop from the step to the roof is this rather than that. But that broken stonework there is what Jeff climbs across every time he goes into or out of the tower. So I was able to remind Jeff that Alice is a stonemason and that perhaps they get together. That is very, very narrow, that gap, but it's also only about 4 foot high. So Jeff's almost on his knees going through, and goes through that as a safety hazard every time he goes to work. We think we can probably solve that problem, don't we, Alice? I think that's it, Kate. Oh yes, while Alice was up there, she took this photograph. I think it's a lovely photograph. We are in a church community. There's something rectilinear about that shape, isn't there? I'm an engineer. Am I allowed to say it? It makes me displeased mildly that the centre lines aren't smack and whoever put the footings in the house got that a foot wrong. It isn't the vicarage, I'm told, but it would be nice if it were. Thank you for listening to me.
So, a few more slides about what we've been doing. Applying what has been learnt by practical work. This is the best, this is the fun bit. Top left picture is a picture we took on our baseline training day, our very first one, at Great Whitley Scout and Guides Association. And we knew there probably was a downpipe there, but we could hardly see it. We had to sort of push this bush aside. And then last Saturday, we had our second working party there, and we've actually managed to clear it. That there is that there. So you can see how much plant growth was in the way. And then at the bottom, these really absolutely fantastic gullies and silk pads. Beneath that, this bit, and the cast iron ring, is about a 2.5 foot deep sort of silt trap. They were completely full of silt. In the course of, we were there for about 4 hours on Saturday. We managed to clear 4 of them out, and then when we eventually got the hose down them and filled them up with water again, the drains started working. It was so exciting. And on this occasion, managed to press some scout labour, or I think that's probably a cub, into action, using SPABs, ladles, and our rubber gloves. So, yeah. And I'm hoping Sarah's going to give me the drain rods she promised me the other day. So we could have done those. Right. So once you've done your baseline, then it's time to actually start planning things in a more strategic way. So something might look awful. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I was at a church. They were getting terribly panic-struck about their funeral beer, which was a 17th century, 16th century timber funeral beer. A piece had broken off the stretcher at the bottom, revealing a very worm-eaten interior. So there was this massive panic about, oh dear, we've got to do something about this. But actually that's probably really, really old insect decay. So my advice to them was buy yourself a roll of lining paper, put your beer on top of it next May, June, see if there's any fresh sawdust, and then think about doing something about it. But actually, what you do need to be doing is removing that pile of pine needles from the valley gutter now, and just leave the funeral beer. So it's about that sort of strategic thinking, and that's where we're getting to now. So I mentioned St George's. They are going to get a cherry picker in once a year to clear their roof. And bottom right is a picture that Derek gave me. Derek is here today. The vicar lying on the floor with the binoculars. Oh dear, I've let on who it is now. Dear me, I shouldn't have done that. We spotted a damp patch really, really high up, associated with this strange water catching feature. So there's 2 points that drain the nave roof that come through this sort of hopper thing, down a pipe and then into the gutter on the aisles. And it's very nicely built, we know when it was put up. Slight problem with it is it's made of lead. It's all slithered down by about 4 inches. So there was no join. There's a gap between where the water comes off the nave and goes into there. And Derek and his helper, as a result of being able to get up with the cherry picker, actually managed to push that back up, wedge it into place. So that's not going to be a problem anymore, which is great. So some action already. And some, understanding that things, the church I mentioned with the pine needles on the roof, well, they cleared those off last spring, so they have, as a result of going around on that day, realised that cleaning the roof at their church, because they've got 5 enormous Wellingtonians in the churchyard, doing it once a year is not enough. They need to do it twice a year. So, who's getting involved in my area? Well, at least 24 church wardens, quite a lot of C.A.B. employees, 9 known bell ringers, a strange lot of known bell ringers. Quite a lot of qualified architects are actually popping up, but we're not doing so well with other denominations. The two people who are from other denominations, one of them describes himself as only 25% Baptist, I think, or the other way round. So he's actually a Baptist originally, but his wife's buried in the graveyard at the C of E church, so he's become the C of E church warden, but he still worships at both churches. And the other person is a verger of a C of E church, because he actually a United Reform, really. So in my area, that's proving to be a bit tricky, so I need a bit of help there if anybody can give me some help. And these are our current members. So we've got churches in Droitwich on the top, so I think that's St Nicholas's, St Augustine's, St Peter's, working left to right. The church with the massive, enormous tower is St George's in Kidderminster. The rather fun carving of a mason, that's St Andrew's in Droitwich. There's King Henry IV is the bloke holding up the thing on the other side of the arch, and that church is thought to have been built by French masons, and this is thought to be a portrait of the mason who carved that, which is rather good. Ewes Harold in the middle, bottom left that's Shrawley Parish Church, middle one that's Great Whitley Parish Church, and then bottom right, that's my right, yes, that is, yes, Great Whitley Scout and Guide headquarters. So that's it for what's been going on in Herefordshire and Worcestershire.